Rakdos has returned from the Tainted to the Grail with a difficulty 19 Sentinel run. What is up, everybody? Super happy to be bringing this one here. This is maybe the third time we've played the Sentinel, I think, and we just finished this run today. We started it a couple days ago, but as far as the time frame, this one's a little bit more fresh in our minds. We go for the passive first. Each hit your Phantom does an additional little bit of damage, I think it said there. Pretty good to start with. Been going for the passive as the first thing we buy in the town instead of buying rune stones. It's been working out pretty well so far. Passives are very, very strong. We run down here and we think we can take this fight without candlelight. And as you see, we start with 20 armor. This is going to be because of meta upgrades that we've done in the town. I would recommend upgrading the starting armor if you are having trouble playing anyone from this family. Just having base armor makes their starting defense card feints and subsequently unbreakable feints so much better. So much better. If you're having trouble defending yourself, that is the issue. You don't have enough base armor, or you don't have enough armor generation. So tip number one for not only the Sentinel, but the Apostate and for the Zealot, you want armor. If you have enough armor, feints and unbreakable feints become super powerful defensive tools. And they allow you to defend extreme amounts of damage for such a low cost. The only requirement that they have is armor. They need you to have armor first. And Bow Draw, a card from the starting deck, a very unimpressive card, is something that I would recommend removing very quickly if given the opportunity. Neither side is efficient enough at what it does to be worth it, in my humble opinion. We are debating how we want to proceed here, whether we want to try to reduce the armor or if we want to try to ramp our damage. We're thinking about how to defend ourselves. I think defense is covered for the most part here. Might take a little bit of damage. And the Sentinel actually being a class where the arrow bag card is pretty dang powerful, as opposed to the Apostate and the Zealot where the arrow bag not as good. I would say removing one is okay here, but keeping one is not too bad. Oh, I see. We deal additional damage based on how many cards we have left. Arrows that we have in our hand. I see. That is the early talent that we pick up. We took some decent damage there, being unable to block. I think we used the block flute as well. So this enemy's kind of getting out of hand a little bit. Our early damage just is not as high as it needs to be. And we get the kill. Thankfully, I think we get 2 levels off the first fight thanks to meta progression upgrades as well. And Bola Shot is so good. I really like it for this class. It's control. It requires you to defend yourself a little bit less, and it can be used to stun enemies that are already stunned to reduce armor. I think that Agile Draft, after having finished this run, I think Agile Draft is good and could be good. Probably would have been maybe even a little bit better in the long run. But I think we needed Bola Shot at several points in this run to save us huge amounts of damage. We do think long and hard about these. All right, and then start every combat with 2 ultimate charges. Increase ultimate's ability damage by a little bit, or drawing additional arrows increases your armor by 5 this turn. I think we increase the ultimate ability's damage. I think that's what we take in the first one. Getting 2 ultimate charges in the beginning is pretty nice because it allows you to use your quivers right off the bat, but I don't think we are leaning that direction at first. And I will admit, after having finished the run today, I would build this class a lot differently than how I started building them here in the beginning. I can already tell that the passives I'm taking really don't have a clear goal in mind. And after finishing the run today, I know I could do a run a lot better for the Sentinel next time. We'll watch and see how many glaring mistakes we made that we may have missed. We find an opening to play our hold a bow there. We don't need to reduce damage, so we just hold the Tainted Force. Thankfully, the turns can go pretty quickly with the Sentinel, although some turns are head scratchers with this class, certainly, especially when you start getting the rune stones that allow you to duplicate things. Then it becomes really tricky what order you do things in. A lot of people might be a fan of the smoke shot. I prioritize its removal. I tend to like using multi-shot cards with this class, and a smoke shot just always ends up messing up my multi-shot. So yeah, it ends up giving them way more armor than they needed to have. And ultimately, what I just did there was fruitless. This is our last turn of the damage boost that we got from bow draw. And at this difficulty, these little grubs have 100 life each. They can be pretty terrifying early on in the game. I think this is, what, the second fight? Fighting this many grubs this early can be a little scary. I did pop a torch either before this fight or at the first turn to avoid getting negative tainted forces, just because I really was kind of scared. And there we go. We get a little lucky with our ultimate there. And I also have to say that I love the aesthetics of this class. The Sentinel is super cool. The flavor of them is cool. Just the way that they look is cool. I think that they are very thematic and very flavorful. Still getting tainted forces, unfortunately. Should have ended the fight by now. Just debating on who to armor reduce. We can throw the armor reduction on the enemy that's hitting us. The hand is a little awkward, and this early I don't think we're as confident in our arrow bags as we should be. And that was definitely a mistake because our armor was so low that the card could not generate us barrier. You need high armor. I gotta stress this. If you don't have high armor, your basic defense cards can't even help you. They don't generate any defense for you. But on the opposite side, if you have very high armor, for a single energy, you can end up defending yourself for 70 barrier easily. We get some good consumables. And calc is always welcome as a early rune drop. We're going to try to heal up some of the early damage we took. No level up, no card reward. We're kind of mapping out our route. We're going to hug the left side, surely. We're just making sure we know what encounters are around us. We have to fight another one of these multi-attackers with a few other enemies. That fight looks very tough, in my opinion. So I look around to try to see if another fight might be easier. And I know that that's a wisp. And a wisp this early is terrible for me. We want to have a high damaging attack. Just not a lot of little damaging attacks when we fight a wisp. We're really torn here. We're like, okay, we'll check it anyway, just to see if maybe it's easier. And then I take a look at it. I'm like, no, that's definitely not easier. I might as well just fight this fight over here, I think to myself. And then I see that this fight would be even tougher for what I have going on right now. So I'm like, wow, that first fight really is the easiest of the three that I just looked at. I turn back around and face check it. Alright. So we see what kind of a tainted force we get. Stun all enemies for 2 turns. Really, really good. That's going to make this tough combat a lot easier. Going to start the armor reduction train. And we don't need to defend ourselves, so we are free to just launch all of our attacks wildly at the enemies. Probably not effective to have done that. I think it was probably better to place the attacks where I wanted them to go. But looking at how the damage played out, it seemed to have been okay. We feel like we're safe to reduce our armor here in favor of some damage. Unfortunately, we don't have too many damage cards to use to get a lot out of it. We're not going to take any damage from the creature that's going to explode this turn. And it explodes into 3 grubs. I think on this difficulty, it will explode into 4 if there's room for 4. So that's something to keep in mind once you get higher in the difficulties. Letting those explode instead of trying to kill them before they explode might be a little bit more feasible, depending on how many monsters are in the fight. We get a stun on the only other enemy that was going to hurt us. And as you can see, with 2 stuns in our deck and the ability to defend ourselves for the early turns before our armor is reduced, it hasn't been too bad. We haven't really struggled to defend ourselves too much. And the flute playing a big part in that. This turn looks absolutely frightening, but we didn't use our ultimate last turn wisely. So this turn, we can hopefully get a damage boost and use it to clear some of the enemies out. Checking our draw, kind of seeing what we can do. If you need to use items, use items. Past me, just do what you need to do. This is one of the big hurdles. In the beginning, you're really going to struggle in higher difficulties, but if you can get past the early game, get a couple talents, it's way easier to handle the fights and start snowballing. We choose the route of defense, playing all of our defensive cards here. And probably using our flute, I would imagine, if we haven't already. Wow. Using the oil, using the flute, using everything. This won't kill. Do a little bit of damage. Oh, okay, we're stacking the odds in our favor. Still. Oh, it went in waves. Okay, I was going to say we didn't get the kill on the left, but we did, which is huge. That's going to save us a lot of damage. We might even still use that attack reducing. Yep. Just go all out. Get past the early game. Use your resources. It does not matter. Let's see how much damage I take. Ooh, we still took damage after all of those countermeasures. Still took damage. Continuously reducing the armor here. Should be able to get the kill in the next couple turns. We should have learned better than to play that card in that manner. We should have at least used arrow bag first if possible. Getting a little risky here as the enemy armor is starting to recover. But we should have enough control with our stuns to see us through. That was pretty rough. I knew that fight was going to be hard. I knew the other fights were going to be hard as well. I feel like we had the highest chance to beat this one. We took it, and in this reality, we made it through. And arrow bag for the kill, or ultimate for the kill? Oh, arrow bag. Dragging things out a little bit more, but we got there. Let's see if we can get a power boost. Sharp shot is okay. You do want a lot of zero cost attacks. Arrows, I guess I should say. I've never used cleanup / culling before, so that was pretty interesting to me. And Fate Breaking Shot seemed bad because I think there's a chance that this cost reduction can target something that's already 0. And this class has a lot of cards that are already 0. So if I Fate Breaking Shot and the cost reduction cost reduces a just a regular shot, then it's kind of wasted. I don't know if that's possible. If I were designing a card game, I would make that not possible, just to kind of free up design space. But because I am unsure, and I should be a little bit more adventurous during these runs, but I really didn't know if my run was going to succeed at this point based on how hard that fight was. I was like, you know what, Sharp Shot will be good. We're going to take it. Only after fighting with myself. Another calc. And we switch one on one and one on the other. Still can't interact with the Confident Priestess. Probably wish that I would have restarted my file by now after the update to see if some of my bugs have been fixed. But we're going to continue playing on this profile. It probably updates. I probably have nothing to worry about in that regard. The card we draw for our runestone is Unbreakable Feints. That's really good. It's almost all we need to defend ourselves this turn. There we go, and now we're set for defense. We have 2 energy to go all out on offense. How good is that? That's so much better than some classes like the Pathfinder. The Pathfinder sometimes in the early game needs to resort all of their energy to defending themselves, and then sometimes still can't even make it happen. I think we chose the wrong target to stun there, maybe? Maybe not. No, we wanted to prevent it from healing up any potential damage we do this turn. Just these monsters have been starting with 75 armor for the longest time. And they actually start with over 75 armor, I've realized now. I thought that eventually it would just stop getting harder, but now they just kind of negate the first couple armor reductions you do to them because their armor is overcapped. It's wondrous. It is a pretty interesting way to scale the difficulty, to be fair. It's interesting that all of these enemies are so much harder than they were on difficulty 0 or 1, and yet we still have the ability to combat them and get to a point where we are crushing them just because of the meta upgrades, the meta progression, and learning the game and the enemies. It's a cool feeling. That's why I love playing games like this. If you agree, give this video a thumbs up. Comment down below. Tell me how tingly you get when you figure a game out. That arrow storm is pretty bad in a hand like this. We have defense, not worried about that. Just throw out one singular card for all of our defense for the turn. Be pretty nice to stun the wisp if we can, to keep it from buffing. The buff the wisp does is pretty annoying. And we get what we asked for. Smoke shot. Without even thinking, we throw that on the wisp. Quit your buffing. Finally, the armor of the Tainted Boar, or whatever it's called, is boosted, or is finally lowered beneath the maximum. A single card for all of our defense for the turn, and now we can go on offense. Let's stop the enemies from buffing. That's our #1 priority. We're still armor reducing. Now our damage is actually taking hold. And our ultimate could get some serious damage off here, but we could wait till next turn and do it on an enemy that has even less armor, because we guaranteed can reduce one enemy's armor by at least 10. Luckily, we got a Tainted Forest that allows us to reduce everybody's armor by 25. Now our ultimate's really going to truck that center Rhino plague unit. Okay, I have to learn this unit's name. He's been the plague Rhino for too long. I have dedicated one episode, one monster name. Oh, I just saw it. What was it? If it has tainted in its name, I will be so happy. It's gotta be tainted something, right? Wow, that did do quite a bit of damage. It did kill it. Okay, now I have to rewind. Okay, I'm going to rewind, and I'm going to know the name. It's gonna be magic. 3, 2, 1, and now I know the name. The Forest Sentinel? Are you kidding me? Why would that be called a Forest Sentinel? Like, Sentinel I kind of get, right? You're defending your allies. That part makes sense. The forest? When I think about a forest, I do not think about rhinos. That is not what I think about inside of a forest. Or some plague mule beast thing. No. Alright. You're 1 for 1, Tainted Grail. You didn't let me down with the grubs, and the phase shifter was pretty cool, actually. So, actually, you're 2 for 1. Forest Sentinel. Alright, we gotta move past that mentally. You can see that these wisps are very annoying, and them getting healed by the enemy on the right is super bad for us. So I think we're going to stun the enemy on the right with the smoke shot, yeah. to prevent the wisp from gaining any more armor. They do not need any more armor. Might be easy to kill them by attacking them enough to reduce their passive so that they don't negate damage anymore. I think, yeah, the passive was gone there. We probably should have killed the wisp. I don't think we noticed. Or I think we looked at it and saw that it was gone and didn't think that it actually was. But I vaguely recall that moment. But I think we got this. Yes. Almost level up. We get a rare rune. But what's even better is the cracked Ethel. Way better than the cracked Eloth. Cracked Ethel is going to give us 10 armor. Our defense just got so much better. Just from that one rune. If you're having trouble with any of the classes from this faction, starting off with an Eloth rune, or my apologies, an Ethel rune at the blacksmith is a guaranteed way to net yourself a ton of free defense. Now look how much barrier we gain. Now we gain 40 barrier for a single energy. And in that case, it didn't even cost us an energy. And not only do we gain barrier equivalent to our armor, having high armor in of itself is a phenomenal defensive layer. So you're reducing the damage the enemies are dealing to you by having high armor and creating a much bigger shell that the enemies have to get through to even get to your life points. So armor is doubly effective. It double dips in its effectiveness on any one of the classes from this faction. Hopefully we can get the kill on the enemy on the left here before it splits. If we can't, it's not the end of the world. They can only make so many grubs. And those things are called infected humans. I gotta be careful. If I start learning too many names in one episode, it can be bad. No use for smoke shot here. We're just gonna throw up our blocks. Oh, it only made 3. Strange. I was pretty sure it made 4. Smoke shot coming in handy here, at least a little bit. I didn't even necessarily need to use it. And I guess we decided it didn't matter where those arrows were going to go. But in fights like this, it is a good idea to keep the abomination alive as long as possible. Don't let it kill you. So, you know, an emphasis on the possible. But keeping it alive will deal extra damage to all of its allies. Because it doesn't just hurt you, it hurts everything on the board. So, unless you're a summoner, keeping them alive till the end can be pretty good. And we're really trying to do just that. We kind of engineer a turn here where we can let the abomination get a kill right here, and we can block the attacks. Never mind. We don't even need to do that. And I think we already used a block flute in this fight. Hold a bow is okay here, right at the end of the fight. The only time it's ever really good. And I don't have a lot of damage to capitalize on it. And I did make the unfortunate mistake of not playing Unbreakable Feints first. So I reduced my armor before I generated barrier. So now I kind of have no choice but to go all out and try to either get the kill, and I end up almost taking damage there. But see how many turns this class takes to get the job done? Many turns. Very Pathfinder-esque. But instead of ramping damage, you kind of just do steady damage the entire time, and your damage ramps in the form of armor reduction of your enemies. Level 5. Or level 4. It's always so hard to tell. Heavy protection. Boost in armor. Could be good. Don't really think that I need it, though, and those are pretty expensive. They would be like guaranteed protection, but they're pretty expensive. Standoff seems pretty good to gain some barrier. But I love Returning Shot. I think Returning Shot is one of the best designed cards. And for this class in particular, Returning Shot is super powerful. We can either get 50 armor with scales. Each hit dealt by the Phantom reduces the target's armor. Or the maximum number of ultimate charges is increased by 10. That's kind of hard to read there. Expanded Quiver is cool and could be good if you had the room for it, but reducing their armor with each hit is so good, and it's guaranteed. Or no, sorry, that's damage, not armor. Sorry, that's damage. There is one that reduces armor, and I do get it later. The Phantom attacks will reduce their armor permanently. But my Phantom strikes reducing my target's damage by 5% is pretty good. If you think about it, there aren't too many ways to reduce a target's damage in the game, especially for this class. So that is pretty powerful to think that you can reduce a target's damage by maybe 40% before it can hit you. We roll up into the combat arena. We think we're strong enough to handle the hit me with all you've got to get a mythical runestone here. And the fight's not a hard one. Sometimes the hit me with all you've got is not tough at all. So yeah, we can easily handle this enemy. We can keep it stunned. We can reduce its armor very, very heavily by double stunning it. We use the Returning Shot first before we use Release. I love Returning Shot so much because of how it functions. You use it for 0 and then it'll cost 1, and then you use it for 1 and then it'll cost 2. Use it for 2 and it'll cost 3. You're never going to play it this many times, but what's awesome about it is it stays in your hand. So passives that account for arrows in hand will always count it because it doesn't leave your hand until you use something like a multi-shot, in which case it will remain in your hand and continue to use itself. So it's very, very powerful. Even more armor reduction, and the amount of defense that we can generate now is huge. He is doing a lot of damage, but we can make so much defense on the turns that we don't stun him. We use feints first. He actually even might be dead right now. The ultimate does a lot of damage to one target, especially when they have no armor. 100 armor, or 100 defense, sorry, 100 barrier. With just those 2 cards, I was able to make 100 barrier. I should have used my ultimate last turn, but he's probably dead this turn either way. He's definitely stunned this turn. I could just bow draw and stun him and wait for next turn. Ooh, are we gonna try for the risky kill? We decide not to. Not enough. Oh. We could have gotten the kill if we would have used bow draw. But we've got the safety shot here. Keep him stunned. and get the guaranteed kill next turn. No big deal. If somehow he would not have died, it would have been really, really bad. We get to level up. Choice between corrosive weaponry, blind fury, and scavenging. I might have been able to take one of these. I don't really like scavenging a lot, but blind fury could have been okay. Maybe corrosive weaponry could have been okay, maybe. But I didn't think I needed them. I think corrosive weaponry was the closest, surely. But I contemplate long and hard because I'm not good enough at this game to immediately recognize what's good and what's bad. So in the moments of decision, I'm like, oh, the entire run rests upon this decision. Try to imagine what my deck will perform like with each of these 3 cards. All of the different fights, pathways, opportunities. It's not that dramatic. But I take Blind Fury? Oh, wow. You know, I stated that this run should be more fresh in my mind than the past runs, but I really didn't think I did that. But now I remember that I did that, and I also know that that card does not stay in my deck. That card does not stay in my deck. It gets removed swiftly. It was a bad pickup. But yet another demonstration of how these replays help, and how recording my games and rewatching them helps me a ton. Narrating back through them helps me a ton. Listening to you guys' feedback helps me a ton. So thank you. We're going to shoot across here through the center. I think that's the Elderly Archer. He's an awesome NPC to run into. We're going to try to leave the Abomination alive and focus on the enemy on the right. He's the scariest target. And with as much base armor as we have, all we have to do is throw out a single defensive card and we're good. We can go all offense from there. 75 barrier with 1 energy. I don't see how you can be having trouble with any of the classes that start with the Feint card. All you need is armor, and then you're kind of invincible. Even the high difficulty enemies have a really hard time getting through it. I mean, I'm not on the highest of high difficulties. Apparently this game goes up pretty dang high. The highest I saw someone mentioning was difficulty 38, and I can only imagine it gets higher than that. So, yeah, for right now, this is working for me. Checking the Phantom. It's like, is this working? Is my damage working? Stun's pretty good on the guy we've been beating on, if we can't kill him this turn. Unfortunately, we might have to use Smoke Shot on him. Or we could just block. We could just use 1 Feints and be fine. 1 Feints fully defends us. Unbreakable Feints should fully defend us, yeah. Now we can just focus our efforts on reducing armor and dealing damage. Smoke Shots remains unplayed. Could use it to reduce the armor of the middle guy. They do. It temporarily increases his armor, but eventually it will be an armor reduction. Important to note that you can do that. He's going to have 75 armor for this turn, but next turn it should go down substantially. Let's see this Blind Flurry and why we remove it so quickly. 3 hits for damage to random enemies. Okay. I'm just looking at it. I'm like, okay. In theory, it's not awful, but it must have been terrible. Oh, I know why I remove it. Yep. I watched it. I watched it right there. Yep. It's because I don't get 3 phantom shots. And I might have assumed that I did get 3 phantom shots since it does 3 hits. But you get 1 phantom shot for every arrow you play. So it doesn't matter how many hits the arrow does. You're only going to get 1 phantom. So I'm like, no, there's no way that I'm having an attack like that in my deck. I'm better off just having high damage, singular hit attacks. And so out of sheer anger that I picked a card that deals damage slightly inefficiently for how I have chosen to build this class in this run, I remove it. I'm wondering, I think I remove it now. It would be so funny if I remove it in the fight right after I take it. I really hope I do. Come on, past self, don't let me down. Oh, look how good Blind Flurry is on 1 target. Okay, he dies to the ultimate. Unless for some reason I want to play other cards. I guess I do. Alright. Pretty good score with our runestones. Cracked Ken's great. Now that I've been using it, I shied away from it for a long time because I just thought it was an inferior year rune, but it's actually pretty good. I can remove cards. Come on, remove Blind Fury. I gotta remove Bowdraw because it's garbage. It's really bad. Don't keep Bowdraw in your deck. Aerostorm, I don't like, but you could keep it in your deck. It's Blind Fury. That's the card we're removing. We're gonna unselect the Aerostorm. I bet you. Come on, past self. Yeah, I also want Smoke Shot out of the deck. I don't like Smoke Shot. Okay, I removed the Smoke Shot. I was like, you know what? Blind Fury is better than Smoke Shot. Like, at least it's better than Smoke Shot. Dang. I let myself down. Wish I would have removed it. It doesn't stay for too long, though. This fight's a little tough. We have to overcome the enemy on the right before the Wisp buffs itself up too much. A single unbreakable feint, 75 barrier. Totally defended. Just a single energy. So much defense from 1 energy. It's crazy. There's our all-star Blind Fury. He actually is going to be a backseat all-star to the true all-star of this hand, Bola Shot. Bola Shot is an absolute godsend in this draw. I think it hits the Wisp. Pretty sure. Potential 50 damage coming out from the Wisp. What? Oh, I just overblock it because I have so much barrier. Yeah. Yep. Good eye past me. I forgot how ridiculously defended we are with just an Ethel Rune. Just an Ethel Rune and some meta progression. Maybe a passive here or there. Once your armor gets up to like 40 or 50, feints are just insanely good. And you start with so many of them. Unless you get really unlucky and draw all your feints in one hand, you shouldn't have an issue. Oh, look how good Blind Fury is. It's just so good. Did I like go AFK? Normally when my mouse stops moving, I get a little concerned. Okay. When I'm thinking, I'm normally moving my mouse around. There we go. I decided to draw. Interesting. I think that's okay because I can stun the wisp now. But I can't unless I can kill this dude. He's really close to dying. I could probably kill him with my ultimate if I get lucky. And then I could stun the wisp and keep him from buffing. That's the ideal scenario. I do choose to stun the wisp. Or I want to. Just marveling in how good Blind Fury is in this hand. What I would have done if I didn't draw it. I do kill the enemy on the right, and I don't stop the buffing. That's fair. That is fair. We check out how many hits it takes. It takes 4 hits to drop their damage negation. We're like, okay, that might be how we have to get through here. We want to kill the enemy on the left, though, before we move over to killing the wisp, because the enemy on the left can do a lot of annoying things. And if it's just the wisp we're fighting, we can keep it locked down with both of our stun cards and all of our insane defense. Yep, we have identified our target. And now we have truly learned to be reserved with our ultimate charges. Our ultimate's good, but we kind of want to save up a lot of charges in case we need to use arrow bags. We stop the buff, and hopefully can kill the enemy on the left this turn. Now, it really dawns upon us what just happened. I'm so glad this happened because we weren't really paying attention. But the 15th card that we played was our ability. They gave us shadow shots, so it gave us 2 shadow shots. So at that moment we realized, oh snap, now I can time this, and instead of getting 10 armor reduced every turn guaranteed, I can get 20 armor reduced guaranteed every so often, every 15th card. So I'm going to try to pay attention to that and make it happen more often. Single card defends us. Now we go on the offensive. And I love that the update shows all of the runes in the top right and how they count. There were some runes like the year rune that wasn't accounted for that is now. And I am incredibly grateful to the developers for changing that so quickly. That was a nightmare to keep track of. But it's been made very manageable. And as soon as we clean up this wisp, we're going to call the video. Thank you guys so much for watching. With these slower fights, the Sentinel run ended up being pretty dang long and all. So it might be about 5 videos. Hopefully you guys can stick with it. I greatly appreciate you watching. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. And as always, peace. Peace.